You ready to make things weird, Phil?
I guess.
All right. All right, folks, you guys remember the 2006 Chevrolet? It's the Envoy. It's a big 4.2. In the first part of the video, we took a look at it, and if I remember right, it had lean codes in it. It's been about a week or two since the guys brought it back because he wanted to drive it and get some of the fuel out of it because he's been keeping it full because the gas gauge is wonky. So he thinks he's driven it enough. I've put Phil, our #1 guy, in charge of removing the pump. So he's gonna get the fuel in the armpits this morning, and he's working on taking the pump out. As soon as he gets that tank down, we're gonna have a look-see at it. We've got a brand new OEM pump, lock ring, and something else, fuel level sensor. And if I do remember correctly, once we get the tank down where we can get to access the electrical connector, we had to do a couple more tests. We at least have to make sure that it can carry enough current down that circuit. I think we checked it, if memory serves me right, it was pulling like 2.5 amps, somewhere's around there. I hope I did that on camera. If I didn't, trust me, I think that's about where it was. I'm hoping that this circuit can, has the ability to carry, 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever it's rated for. So we'll check that before we just go winging a pump in there. Phil's got a tank out for us. Very nice of him. I did help, right, Phil?
That's true.
That's true. We've got the connector here. So this is the connector for the fuel tank pressure sensor. We're not concerned with that. This is the one we're concerned with. And like I say, whether or not it can carry enough amperage to make the pump run. It was the only test we couldn't do last time. So we have our gray wire and our black. So our gray is going to be our pump power. So make sure, don't front probe, folks. We're just very gingerly gonna stick it on the edge of the connector here, not ramming it in. So this here bulb will draw about 4 amps. And I'm gonna use the scan tool here. We're gonna pop in and we're gonna turn the fuel pump on. We're gonna make sure that light's nice and bright. Now looking at the diagram, this is a 20 amp circuit. So we can give it more beans. We can stick another load on top of it. I'm just very gingerly gonna hold this in here because I don't wanna probe too deep. And we're gonna turn that on. And you can see I've got a crappy connection here with this one. We'll figure this out here. Boom, wrong one, fella. Is this like watching one of your students, Phil? Is it that bad?
A little bit.
Oh man. Oh shoot, you know what this guy just did? We know it can carry 20 amps because I just blew the fuse because I touched my wires together. So we watched that live on camera. Trust me folks, this one can carry 20 amps. I was gonna check the low reference for the fuel pump, but I just lost our power source because I'm a ding dong. So that's one way to find out if it can carry current. Just short it out and see if the fuse blows. So Phil's very kindly gonna find PCMB. Fuse number 10, Phil, underhood fuse box. She's a 20 amp, I'll go get you a new one. By getting a new one, I mean we come over to many Chrysler Tipum sitting around here. We yank a 20 amper. You want me to hold it out here so you can see it? Or?
That guy right there.
That little fella. Let's see. Ooh, survey size. That bone, is it?
It is.
Ha! I knew I did a good job. Boop! Everything come back to life. Now that we've all learned the lesson, what not to do, I'm gonna I want to make sure that low reference for the fuel level sensor is good, so I'm just gonna use a 75 milliamp test light here. We're gonna go to the fuel pump power, so that's the gray. I'm gonna take and turn that back on. Let's see here. Gotta get back in the scan tool. It powered down on me here. Let's see. We're gonna turn the fuel pump on. The fuel pump is on. I'm gonna make sure that it's on by touching the ground here for the fuel pump, and it is. And then the low reference, that's gonna be this orange with black. And we can see that can carry 100 milliamps. So that's good. The only other wire that's left is the fuel level sensor wire. I'm gonna see if I can pull that up on scan data for us. So I've got us a couple probes here. I went through just to make sure, pin fitment was good, and we have good pin fitment on each one. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put a variable resistor here across the fuel level sensor on the fuel level sensor side and the ground. Right now on scan data, it's at 100% fuel. And the resistor I'm putting in here right now is about, hey Phil, would you be so kind as to come hold this for the people?
I'll do it.
Just right about there. Now, oh, Phil. Oh, gosh. Right there. Good man. We're gonna take the variable resistor. We can see it right here. Our fuel level is at 5%. Here, I'll move this a little bit for you. And then we're gonna start adding some resistance. And we can see the fuel level sensors coming up. I don't know what the ohm reading is. I think we're gonna get up to about 250 or so. And as resistance increases, our fuel level also increases here. So this is a good wire integrity check. It's the only way I know how to do it. Or you could actually use the fuel level sensor itself. Pick up a little bit there, Phil. Good man. And then you can see we're coming up. As resistance keeps going up here, I think we've passed 250. But once it nears, oh, we got some dinging going on up there. And then we start to bring the resistance back down. You guys get the point. Just like that, back to zero. So there's all the wire integrity checks we can do. Open circuited, it goes right to 100%. So that's about all we can do, folks. We're not worried about the fuel tank pressure sensor. There's no problems with that, but we can confidently say it needs a fuel pump. And now we can tear into it and see what kind of rigmarole is going on in there. Because if I remember correctly, this guy had quite a history of fuel pump replacements. So here it is. He's got the connections off it. It sure doesn't look like a used unit to me. They did a nice job preserving it. Put a ton of gobbledygook around here. We've got the Brooksy, the brass chisel. Well, I think that's the first time I took one of those off and didn't need an air hammer. Locator tab goes by the arrow. Usually the top of these tanks are pretty snug. The plastic ring here inside the tank has a tendency to give it the squeeze. As you can see, we'll probably have a little difficulty taking this out. I think Watch West Work did a video on repairing the top of one of these tanks, if I remember correctly. So there's that. We'll set that to the side. Well, let's see if there's anything obviously wrong with that. I suppose just the regulator here could be bad because I think it did maintain a pretty steady, 20 some pounds. You want to go grab one of the metal pans there, Phil, and stick it in that. Or it could be just a crap pump, or the pump's down here. Hard to say. I don't know what brand this is. I don't see any sticker on it. Could be Fleabay. I think the guy was telling me that he was putting in used ones, but it certainly doesn't look used to me. So we've got the fuel level sensor. With General Motors, you have to buy this thing separate. I think it comes with some directions here. We don't need them until we do. And then here's we've got two O-rings. We've got the fuel level sensor. Phil's gonna let me break it, so I'll stick it on here. We'll get the connector unwound. So that's unwound. I'm assuming we might need the directions. Let's see here. So click it like that. The wire is under there. And let me have that, Phil. Let's see where it is. Well, where do you go, little fella? I thought we got an extra pigtail here. So you got to come up inside this connector somewhere, right? Yes, sir. I think we're gonna have to run it over here through the sock. Try to get it where you guys can see it. Perhaps. Well, I tell you what, before I run it up through I think it's a Chinese finger, whatever they call those things, let me just double check in the directions. And they're right. Disclaimer, these are a general guide. Graphical representations are typical. Features may vary. Oh, put it in, plug it in. Important. Transfer fuel level sensor from old module. Release the fuel pressure. Okay, that's no help. So, I don't know what they put this wire guard on there for, but we're gonna come around town. We're just gonna go up and plug the little guy in. I think it goes this way, right there, and the little sock back up on there. It's not gonna be in the way of anything. And them wires there. Yeah, I guess that one's totally different. So, yeah, so I mean, that should be it. The other thing I should mention is when we were testing this from, empty to full and just using the variable resistor is, if you want to be 100% sure that it is correct, you should know the resistance value, the min to max, which is usually published in service data. So we didn't do that though, however, but I'm pretty confident until I'm not. All right, you got the new O-ring, Phil. Stick that baby on there. We did already clean this up, and we used the gas caddy and pulled all the fuel out of the tank, so it's not so awkward putting it in. Okay, and we've got to make sure our locator tab goes with the arrow. Let's see, I brought the new lock ring over here, Phil. Like I say, sometimes these can be a little tricky to get to stick in the tank because the tank is all swelled up. It's all swole. Just like after I do elbows and toes at the gym. All right. I'll use the brass chisel. Can you guys see? Is it going? Yeah, keep going. We got it almost in a notch. We're in unison there, Phil.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So I think that's it, folks. What we're going to do now, I'm not going to record the process of putting it in and cranking all the fuel back in it. We're going to get it hooked up, give her a little spritz of the fluid film, and then we'll take it for a shakedown. Not going to throw a fuel pressure gauge on it because if I remember correctly, when we drove it, we were able to watch the oxygen sensors and see at wide open throttle that they went right to 0 volts. And if this goes into power enrichment mode, then we'll know we have it. And we also know we took out like 12 or 13, about 13 gallons it looks like, so we should have, I don't know, a half a tank or so I would assume on the gauge, or thereabouts, a little bit less maybe. All right, Philly's got us going. We're gonna back out. The fuel gauge is just below half, so lucky guess on our part. I thought that's about where it should be. This guy will be happy. He'll have a functioning fuel gauge. After I get through the maze of cars here, we will pull up some scan data. Pull over here. In the shade. Also, with this video, new camera. New to me. I think it's the 4th one since 2014. Okay, here we go. I don't know much about the photography world, so I don't know if it's a good camera or not, but I think it's going to be good for us. It looks like when I have the doors open, it does a little better job with the sunlight. Anyhow, we're going to get the fuel trims up here. We're going to get oxygen sensors 1 and 2. I'm going to graph those. Like I say, excuse my ignorance because it's been, I think, a week and a half or 2 weeks since the guy's been here. So I'm going to graph those. We're going to go out. We're going to give it full throttle. Pedal to the plastic. I'm going to put my seatbelt on. Because when we unleash Chevy Thunder, you want to make sure you're strapped in. And we're going to see what the oxygen sensors do. I don't think anything's coming. I didn't feel a thud, so that means we're good. And what do we expect to see when we go full throttle? Oh, that's right. This thing's got bad wheel bearings, doesn't it? Hey, there's Vinny. Hey, Vinny. What do we expect to see? We expect to see either to stay in fuel control, oxygen sensors remain switching, some GMs do that, or we expect it to see power enrichment mode where the O2 sensors go full rich because the PCM's just putting it right to it. Okay, here we go, folks. Pedal to the plastic. seen what we came to see. We saw what we came to see. We've seen it all. You can see, maybe you saw, that it went into power enrichment mode. The O2 sensors went full rich. Oh wow, sick. What's that thing? It's one of those concrete pumper deals. That's pretty sweet. So that's it, folks. I'm confident that we fixed it because we could see that. We could also see that our fuel trim numbers are beautiful. Perhaps you couldn't when you're driving because I wasn't looking at them, but we're at or around 0, plus or minus probably 8%. So we can just head back to the shop here. Oops, tripod just fell over. And we can see the fella's fuel gauge is functioning. And I guess now we can try to sell him a bunch of wheel bearings, or at least the one that's bad. But it's not every day you see an Edsel, folks. And it's not every day I ask you to go into that comment section, but today I'm gonna. Questions, the comments, the concerns you might have. There's probably a dozen videos or more on the YouTube, I'm sure, about removing the fuel pump in your Envoy. They're actually a relatively simple one to do because GM's nice enough to put the fuel line connections on the outside, on the very front of the tank, and then at the very rear. Other than that, if it's not really full of fuel, it's not too difficult to remove. So, poke around for those. Poke around on the Insta. Say goodbye to the Edsel. Poke around on the Facebook. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.